You wouldn't have just seen me then, but oh my God, that was so loud in my ears. I should really learn to turn it down for the intro music. I hope it doesn't deafen any of you as much as it maybe deafens me. But yeah, that's just how it rolls, I guess. So how's everyone doing? Welcome back to Four Tier Fever. I hope you all are doing well. I hope you all had a great week. I hope you're all just doing well, basically. I've pretty much just repeated myself there. An interesting week this week, probably not in terms of the action that we saw probably for the other weeks. Quite a little bit has happened now. We are 2 men down. Shay, it's the 2 men that their team have lost this week. And so that's for you to be the judge of. But we do have the return of Luke, who missed last week for, reasons. Definitely not because MK got hammered at AFC Wimbledon. But we've got him back this week. How are you, Luke?
I thought we weren't going to mention that.
Well, tough luck, Cookie.
Yeah, no, it's good to be back. Sadly, couldn't make the recording last week, but back in action with, Don's in a bit of a weird situation, but I'm sure we'll get to that later.
Yeah, we all had a good laugh at that video as well. Hope you enjoyed those editing skills from me in particular. Absolutely top notch there. I mean, he did say some other bits, but I just thought it was a bit funny just to do a little bit of work because we lost last week, and I had nothing better to do at 1:30 on a Sunday morning as it was then. So there's that. Just before we start, of course, the other night me and Jake in particular did a interview with David Artell, the Grimsby town boss. It was a really insightful, interesting talk. Well over an hour. If you haven't listened to it, I highly recommend it. It's well worth your time. David's a great bloke, and we could only thank him for giving up his time in speaking to us. Really insightful, really knowledgeable, and it's not one to be missed. So if you haven't gone and listened to that already, be sure to go and check it out. You won't be disappointed. Right, let's crack on, shall we? A little bit to talk about, as I've mentioned. We'll start with probably the game that got interested in terms of the big one at the weekend. First v second coming into it was Notts County and Gillingham. Notts obviously topping the table at the start of play. Gillingham just behind him, and it was the Gills that got a good away win, a 1-0 victory. The goal, I thought they took the goal really well. Elliot Nevitt rounded the goalkeeper's a lovely ball, I believe, from Romero Hudson. But just looking at the balance of play, I thought Notts County looked incredibly unlucky. I think they did everything but score. There was quite a few cracking saves from the Gills keeper, Glenn Morris. Hit the post a couple of times. He had a goal disallowed right at the end from Sam Austin. It took the linesman about 12 years to put his flag up for that one. So I can perfectly understand Notts County's frustrations. But Gillingham look the real deal at the moment. I'm sitting second at the minute, but only lost once. They've scored 10 goals. They've only conceded twice, which is the best defensive record in the league, which is probably no surprise with Gillingham. We knew how good they are defensively for even the past few. Well, last year in particular, but past few years, they're not a side that concede a lot of goals. But they're also backing it up now with obviously their goal scoring threats. And second at the minute, 7 games played, joint top on points. It's a dream to go to Notts County as well to pick up a win. It's huge, isn't it?
Oh yeah, no, it really is. Like we've said in previous pods, Notts is gonna be a hard place to go. There aren't going to be many teams that run away with any points, let alone all 3. And to get a clean sheet, I mean, nice little 1-0 win. That's all you can really ask for. And I do want to highlight the vision from Hutton for that pass. I mean, he's split 2 lines of defence there with one pass straight for on goal around the keeper. Jobs are good, and fantastic play from them, and they can be delighted with that result.
Yeah, it was an unreal ball in. From remember watching it, but I think Nevitt still got a hell of a lot of work to do to round the keeper Alex Bass and just slot it in. The composure on that. I think it's a really nice goal all around. But I've mentioned on Notts County, they were unbeaten coming into this one. That's now been wiped out. But like I said, I thought they were really unlucky not to at least take a point from that. They had some unbelievable chances in that. from a couple of saves from Glenn Morris that were top notch. They hit the post as well, and of course that disallowed goal from Sam Austin. But it's a defeat for Notts. I mean, they were never going to stay unbeaten. In this league, it's just impossible for them to continue on. It's the same for any other team. It's not just Notts County thing, but it's a defeat at home. But how much confidence could we maybe say that they can take from their unbeaten run? Because overall, it's been a really positive start for their campaign and all.
Oh yeah, no, it has. I don't think it will phase them all that much, to be honest. I mean, it is a shame to be losing your winning streak, your unbeaten streak at home, especially to a team that could potentially become your promotion rivals later in the campaign, but obviously remains to be seen. But they created a lot of chances, as you were saying. I mean, I was looking at some of the highlights back, and I think it was Cerula that hit the post when he really should have scored on a rebound. I don't know how they've not scored that one. The offside call, didn't have a great view of it on the highlights, but probably fair enough. But they were creating more than enough chances. On another day, they probably get something from that game. And as long as you are creating these chances and you're getting these opportunities, sure, there'll be days where it doesn't necessarily fall for you. That's the case with football. But, it sets you up for the long term because it's a good performance regardless. And so, I would expect to bounce back.
Yeah, that's what I certainly got from that. I think it was just one of those days. You mentioned about that Cerula chance that hit the post. I believe it was the initial shot from, I want to say Jody Jones, in which Morris pushed out. Cerula's probably does have to score. Could have maybe looked for the pass. There was an open man for the pass, but you can understand why he shot there. Not disparaging that. And like I said, that offside call, difficult to tell on the video. It just took an absolute age for the linesman to give it. It must have taken him about 10 to 15 seconds right after the goal went in. It was one in which he certainly had to think about and take his time. But I'll be honest, we can't really comment on that too much because in terms of looking at it, we couldn't tell. I certainly couldn't tell. Just one of those days. I think Notts would have learned a lot from that. Yeah, I mean, as we mentioned, I think they could take a lot of promise from obviously their start of the campaign with their unbeaten run. The fact it's taken them this long to a very good team, I add as well. I expect both of those teams to be right up there in the thick of it come the end of the season. I know that Notts go to Morecambe next, potential banana skin. That one with Morecambe, which we'll get onto a little bit as they've not played this weekend, but do play on Monday night tomorrow. As for Gills, I know they've got us coming up, but before that they go to Barrow. So they play the current league leaders 2 weeks running to do Gillingham. So we'll see how they get on there. But no, good win for Gills. Really, really impressive. Away from home to keep a clean sheet at Meadow Lane. I don't think a lot of teams will say that. And like we said previously, a lot of teams will not go to Meadow Lane and pick up a result. So that's fair play to Gillingham. Mark Bonner's properly getting right at the minute. A really good performance on them. Right, we'll move on from that one. We should probably touch on MK Dons because I think we've obviously quite a bit has happened. Obviously, since the last time you was on the pod in particular, you obviously had that defeat last week at AFC Wimbledon. I thought I'd mention it again because why not? But obviously since then, Mike Williamson's obviously moved on. He's gone to Carlisle. And you had a game against Doncaster yesterday, finished 1-1, both sides finishing with 10. I just want to get your opinion just like on the whole situation because it's been an interesting few weeks for the Dons, isn't it?
Yeah, it's been wild to say the least. We've also had I think our new CEO Neil Hart come in relatively recently, nabbed him from Bolton. So I mean, there's this constant sort of aura of change going on around the club at the minute, and the managerial change is just that just sums it up pretty well, to be honest. Supposedly, the club were actually going to let Williamson stay, at least for now. But personally, I prefer the 200k from Carlisle. Thank you very much. We'll just go and find ourselves a new manager and hopefully get a nice bit of a bounce. But we'll see. I have no idea who's coming in. I think a lot of our fans are hoping for someone like a Scott Lindsay, a Ryan Lowe. I think ultimately we just need a really good man manager, because we have so many players in this squad that are underperforming and they should be doing better, really. And that was pretty well summarised by the second half against Doncaster, to be fair. Showed them far too much respect in that game.
Yeah, it does seem to be pretty much in the end of it. I mean, it's still early days, he's not long been gone. So it still might take a little bit of time, as you've mentioned, It'll be interesting to see what you do. Obviously, new ownership at the club, wanting to get their own man in. I do think MK is a somewhat attractive proposition. Obviously, with this takeover, with the squad they've got, with I'd say the finances they've got now, is a side that really should be pushing right up there at the top of the table. Obviously, big stadium as well. You don't fill it, but big stadium regardless. No, I think there's something there for any manager to work with, and it'll be interesting to see who MK do attract. Albeit we'll see how long that takes. In terms of obviously the game yesterday, drew 1-1. Doncaster obviously came into it. They lost at Harrogate. We did talk last week about how we just sort of thought it was a bit of an off day. There were 2 red cards in the game. Harry Clifton being sent off within the first 10 minutes for 2 yellows. Oh, Harry, what have you done there, mate? I mean, I love Harry Clifton. Grimsby born and bred. I'll be honest. I love Harry to bits, but I found that quite amusing. MK obviously took the lead about 10 minutes for our time, and Ellis Harrison popping up, which was interesting to see. I must say, the build-up play beforehand from Aaron Nemane, however you pronounce him, is terrific. I really like him as a footballer. He's someone that's got pace, trickery, and he's really good at finding men. As somewhat weird as that sounds, I mean, we saw it last season. I saw it last season at Notts County when I think he got a brace. I could be wrong, but he definitely got one. Decent finish from Harrison, and then obviously Harrison went from hero to villain himself with a straight red card in the second half, and then Doncaster eventually finding the equaliser with about 10 minutes to go from a header from a corner from Tom Anderson. I mean, you mentioned about the second half. Overall, on the game, what did you sort of make of that?
I think in the end, a draw was probably just about fair. I think we started the game very well, even before Clifton decided to go and get 2 yellow cards in the space of 7 minutes, both of which were yellows, by the way. I'm not hearing anything else. They definitely were. I mean, we obviously we had a man advantage from that point on, and we controlled the game, but didn't really do all that much with it. It kind of felt like it was still Williamson ball. You still had a lot, you had a lot of control, not many shots as such. The players were playing with a bit more freedom. They were expressing themselves a bit more. But in terms of the statistics, it wasn't actually all that different. And then obviously come second half, Ellis goes and gets himself a straight red, which again was definitely deserved. In today's game, it's studs up against straight through there, man. So it's always going to get given. And I think at that point, as I mentioned already, we showed them far too much respect. We made a very interesting change to bring out Liam Kelly and bring on Sonny Finch. Only problem then being we had a block of 5, a block of 3, a nice huge space, and then Finch. So he was just totally isolated, and we never really got out from there. And it did kind of feel inevitable that the goal was going to come, although I was hoping it wouldn't be something quite as basic as not jumping to try and win a header from a corner. MJ Williams, what are you doing? As simple as that. Come on, the very least you can do from a corner is jump. Come on now.
We knew about your displeasure with MJ Williams last night when we were having a chat. Interesting one. I feel looking at that. I didn't think looking at it probably seemed a bit of a fair result. I agree that I think both were red cards. Obviously, Clifton for obviously the 2 yellows. It's daft. I can sort of see the argument that that maybe some refs might give him maybe the benefit on a yellow card, maybe a final warning as such. But Yeah, it's just one of them. Some say that, some don't. I don't think you can have many complaints with that Harrison one. Yeah, studs up. It's a red card if I've seen it. And yeah, I think I just get the feeling it might be like this just for a little bit until you get that man with Dean Lewington. Like I said, we'll have to see what happens with MK there. We know that obviously it's probably not been the start of the season that you'd wanted, what probably you expected. With MK, arguably the favourites from everyone, near enough, to be at least top 3, let alone champions. But yeah, I think it's clearly a lot of work to do. I think for Doncaster, I mean, both sides finished with 10 men, but I think Doncaster maybe suits. I don't know. They might be a bit happy with the draw. I don't know. It's one of them. Maybe could have had a go to it. I don't know. It's a weird one. I think a draw's probably fair. I think I might be looking into this too much, but yeah, there's that one. I think Doncaster needed some sort of response after the Harrogate defeat. I mean, Harry Clifton took that personally, but in it's an away point at MK, one of the favourites to be up there with Donny this season. I don't think I could really argue too much in the grand scheme of things. I'd probably be the happier of the two sides from a Donny fan. So yeah, interesting on that one. We'll have to see what happens over the next few weeks with MK with their manager search. And we'll see who can attract. We'll move on to Mike Williamson's new team now. Carlisle United. I think if you'd have said this at the start of the week, I'd have called you a liar. I just think it was one I wasn't expecting. I was somewhat half expecting for Williamson to get the sack, if anything. Not for Carlisle to snap him up, which is interesting from them. He had his first game yesterday. Carlisle away at Swindon. They won 2-0. An away win, a clean sheet. It stops the rot of Carlisle. I think they had about 4 straight defeats before that. So, the new manager bounce is real from the sounds of things, although there's still probably a few more question marks on Swindon. We might as well just touch on Williamson at Carlisle. What did you make of that? I mean, you said that the board weren't going to sack Williamson at the time being. They planned to stick with him. But it sounded like Carlisle had paid a release clause in his contract. What did you make of that? 'Cause I think it's an interesting one for me. I'm not sure about you.
Well, yeah, I mean, at least from our perspective, it was a bit of a no-brainer. I mean, obviously we made some kind of effort to keep him, but they've paid a release clause of 200k, and we'll take that. Thank you. But for them, I suppose it gets him out of that situation. It brings him closer to home, because that is the one thing. Obviously, Williamson is from up north, ex Newcastle centre back and all of that. Coming down to Milton Keynes is a long, long way away. Mm-hmm. Whereas obviously Carlisle's a lot closer. That's a bit of homesickness involved there. But I do think it could actually work out for them if he gets out of this sort of rigid way of, right, plan A, plan A, plan A. If it's not working, plan A. There was no adaptability there. And I think that's something that's going to have to change this time around with Carlisle.
That's the thing I agree with. I looked at it at the time. I couldn't tell whether I liked the appointment or not. I just thought it was, yeah, all right. I think Williamson's got something to prove there. I think Carlisle will give him a lot of time. It's obviously a bit difficult now because it's probably they might not have the players that really suit his system. I think they might have a few, but probably not so much of maybe would have liked. It'll obviously take a lot of time to get the free flow football that he wants there. And like you say, just a plan, perhaps maybe a plan B might be needed. Something that he lacked a little bit there at MK. But I'm intrigued to see how this one goes. And as you mentioned, perhaps a little bit of homesickness for the fact that he's gone back up north. But in terms of his first game, Carlisle stopping the rot. I think that was the one thing that they needed to do more than anything, because they've had, quite frankly, a bit of a dismal start to the season. I think we've mentioned it for the past few weeks that it could be a little bit of a relegation hangover. I think for how they were last year and how they were in League One, they went down with a whimper. eventually. It was always going to be difficult, I think, to sort of turn that tide. And the season so far has certainly said that. They obviously made the change with Paul Simpson, and of course brought in Williamson in. But a 2-0 win at Carlisle, at Swindon, sorry. Sam Lavelle and it was Armstrong, wasn't it? With the goals in both halves. I mean, it's just what they needed, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, no, it was. Regardless of how they got it, they needed a result from somewhere, and that's what they've done. I do find it very ironic that both goals came from set pieces and neither one of them was taken short. I'm sure Williamson will put an end to that nonsense. You're never taking a long one again.
Yeah, nip that in the bud very quickly. No, thank you.
But no, it's exactly what they needed. Yeah, I think it will obviously take time to implement Williamson's ideas. Obviously, as you say, it is a different group of players that are there to play a different style of football. So it will take a while, and there's a lot of talk that goes into the detail behind this style of play as well. And you can't do that in 1 week of training. It will be a gradual process, but they'll get there, I think.
Yeah, of course. It's not. It's an appointment. What I do certainly get from it, it's an appointment that it won't be an overnight thing. It will take a hell of a lot of time. Might need to take a fair bit of patience from that. But I think in the short term, what they needed was just that win, just to stop this sort of, I say, rot, as I've mentioned. And they certainly did that. On Swindon, they obviously picked up that win last week against Newport. A really good 4-0 win, although we will get onto Newport in a little bit, which might not be as good, actually, as some people might think. And then I could see this coming from a mile off, actually, with the greatest respect. I think the really poor goals conceded by Swindon. I mean, they had their chances, but nothing really spectacular. It's another defeat for them. I mean, like I said, they won last week, but it's again, I'm concerned again. I'm not sure about you.
Yeah, no, for me, this was, from a Swindon perspective, this was poor. I think they did have chances, and especially at 0-0, there was one chance they absolutely should have scored. Shimanga, MK Don's academy player, by the way, that decision to shoot when he had a teammate right there that would have had an open goal, that's kind of changed the game. That you needed that goal. Just one poor decision, and that's changed the course of the game. And obviously, they still could have just, defended better and not conceded two. But,
football fear.
Yeah, no, it's one of them. It's a concerning one. They had chances and they really should have done more with that game. But I think that's kind of Swindon in a nutshell. It's just very inconsistent.
Just very inconsistent, but very consistent in somewhat the poor results, like poor performance categories. It's a thing that's been happening for quite a while now. Against with them winning last week, so the scoreline quite convincingly. For them to come up against sort of an out of form team in Carlisle, because that's what they were. They were out of form. You could tell they were struggling. They really weren't inspiring at all. Still, how long does it say there's still a long way to? I mean, it's 7 games in, of course, there's still a long way to go. But I think there's already. I think the writing is largely on the wall for Swindon. Whether so much for Mark Kennedy, I think be a little bit more time before any judgments that are made. But we praise Swindon for their January transfer, not January, their summer business, obviously in the summer. But I've always questioned if maybe Mark Kennedy was the man. I still very much have my doubts on that. Jury's still very much out, but it's not been a great start to the season at all. And like I said, we'll get on to Newport. It was a heavily depleted Newport side. I think it's one thing that we should probably say. It's pretty much what I sort of expected. I'm lying now a little bit. I feel like they could have improved ever so slightly. I think I've probably just looked into their transfer business more, but it's just sort of that mentality of the club I just think is all wrong. And it's been going on for quite a while. I mean, we know that they've had problems with their ownership and all that such. But it's a really interesting scenario, I think, at Swindon, and it's not one I can see stopping anytime soon. I don't think can get any manager in. I think I think he'd struggle with this. It's just a task of what it is at Swindon at the minute. But taking up away from Carlisle, it was a much needed win. They definitely needed that. Mike Williamson, and then they move on to next week. Hopefully, with that win, it brings a little bit of confidence heading into Mike Williamson's first home game in charge of Carlisle, which is against us, which I'm not looking forward to. First home game for their gaffer. We're pulling away from home, but that's a discussion to have next week where we'll get to it then. So there's that. I think one we should probably touch on is Accrington Stanley. I was quite critical of obviously them last week. I said that I thought Morecambe had a quicker chance, I think, at winning a football match than Accrington. Had a really poor start to the season, I think is probably safe to say. It's not for lack of, they score goals, but they concede way too many. So it sort of took me quite surprised when I saw they went 2-0 up against Port Vale yesterday, a side in which, they've had a couple of wins recently. It's probably been a little bit of a start, but it looked like a corner might have started to turn a little bit. So it did caught me by surprise that they were 2-0 up against Darren Moore's side. But I think it's safe to say, with them conceding it in the 90th and the 95th minute, for them to draw 2-2 with Port Vale, in which I did see a lot of stuff saying that I thought, Port Vale were poor yesterday. Professional footballers, you're 2-0 up in the 90th minute. You've got to be seeing that out, haven't you?
Yeah, you really do. Lack of bottle. Straight. That's all that's down to. But equally, that's why you do see these sides down there. They can't necessarily close out a win. They can't, really fight to the end. And at least looking from the outside in, it looked like a very, very scrappy game. Like there wasn't ever a sense of control as such. It was always up in the air. So there was never that certainty of, right, we've got the win now. That was never the case, and that they're always going to have to defend till the final whistle. And ultimately, they've not done that. They haven't cleared their lines for either goal when they clearly had the chance to for both. So it's poor defending on both fronts, unfortunately, and that's cost them.
Yeah, I don't think there's really much more to add to that. They have had chances to clear it away. They haven't, and they got punished for it. And it's quite interesting because I thought they actually took their goals pretty well. I thought Sean Woolley's in particular was a really nice finish. Donald Love for the corner, maybe slightly unmarked, but it's still a good header either way. But yeah, you can't be throwing it away at home in that style that late on at the end. Confidence coming into play there, perhaps, but even then, you've got to see it out. And I said this about Accrington last week. I really do fear for them. I fear for them at the minute more than anyone. I said I fear for them more than Morecambe at the minute, who are of course yet to win themselves. Obviously, they play tomorrow. But you can see, like I said, it's not for the lack of trying. Accrington, they score goals, but they just cannot keep it out. They cannot keep it out the net. I'm going like a little bit like Gary Neville without voice. But no, I really do fear for them. You can go and listen to that last week. I think you do have to look at maybe John Dolan and stuff. But at the same time, I do feel for a little. Like I said, I felt for him last week. I do feel for him a little bit this week. I don't think you can really pinpoint that much on him. You've got to clear your lines, and that's something that they don't do. Yeah, I don't know with Accrington at the minute. It is a sucker punch, but ultimately they've thrown that away. There's no two ways of putting it. But from what I've certainly seen, it's a point gained for Port Vale, if anything.
Yeah, it'll do. But for me, this was two teams really underperforming, and I think all four goals. It's getting the basics of defending right. Again, with the first goal for Accrington, they had a chance to clear their lines. They didn't. They just let it happen. And there wasn't anyone throwing their body in the way of it. And then you get to the second goal, and this is the third pod I've mentioned this on. Track your man. Follow your man to make sure they cannot have a free shot at goal. It is the most basic thing, the most basic principle of defending. And for a club like Port Vale, who are hoping to be towards the top end of the league, you can't get away with not doing it. It's as simple as that, really.
Yeah, pretty much that. I don't think there's much really more I can add. I just see it as professional footballers. If you 2-0 up in 90 minutes, you should see it out. That's just the impression I get. I'm not sure. You might disagree, but I just think that is the case. You've just got to make sure you get it over the line. And something that Accrington did, I'll be quite honest, horrendously yesterday. Port Vale, again, looking at it, a lot of their fans saying that it was a poor performance from them. Perhaps. If you're 2-0 down in 90 minutes, you're not complaining at a point at the end of that, but they know that there's certainly some work to do in that regard. So Port Vale will definitely be happy with the two sides, that's for sure. Colchester, we'll do this one before we go to a quick break. Colchester, I think we've mentioned, I certainly mentioned on the pod a few times over last week. They've been okay. I still felt that they had another gear to go to. I think he's still trying to find their feet a little bit. And they certainly did that yesterday. A 3-0 win against Tranmere Rovers. I thought they took the goals really well. As much as I maybe do look at Tranmere for a few of them, just being really sloppy in possession. I thought Lau Taylor took both his goals particularly well. The two that he got in the first half, some really nice build-up play. I tell you what, that link-up between Lau Taylor and Samson Tavide, I think could be a real force this year. I think we've seen it a few times already this year. I think we saw patches of that against Morecambe when they played in that 3-3. They keep them fit. I think they could be a right handful for teams this year. Both of those two, they look like they have a real good partnership coming on together there. And then that third goal, really good finish from Tavide, but it's come from Tranmere being caught in possession. I think if you're Tranmere, I think you're really disappointed with the goals that they've just given up there for the fact that they've lost it. Just so sloppy. That's all I can really say on that. But is it a case maybe that Colchester are now, they're trying to find their, they've had their feet there. What, four unbeaten in the league? I mean, three draws. I mean, they probably have liked another win in there. Probably should have beaten Morecambe. They had they threw their result away against them last week. But, they're getting the results. They're not losing. And they look a real handful for opposition teams this season, don't they? That's probably what we expected at the start of the campaign.
Well, yeah, I think this was a real glimpse of what Colchester could be doing. And, you see it towards the end of the season where the top teams do start to really sort of push away with these sorts of results. So to get one like that this early against, a decent side, Tranmere are a decent side. It's really good. They were efficient with their attacking. They were decisive with their passing, and they made it so easy to just split the defence in 2, 3, 4 passes, whatever, and bang, straight through 2-0. And then the third one, good awareness, straight for on goal. What more do you want, really?
Yeah, as I said, I think if you're Tranmere, I think you're disappointed in the manner which they've given it up, but taking nothing away from Colchester. I think they've split them open when they have won the ball back, and they've worked it really well, and they've got those goals in which were really nice. I thought I generally there was 3 good goals there. Tranmere, a couple of maybe question marks over the last couple of weeks. We know that they've had a relatively solid start to the season. Didn't score a lot, didn't concede many either. They obviously started off, unbeaten for a few games. They obviously beat Carlisle 2-1 at the end of August now, I think it was. But back-to-back 3-0 defeats away from home. The other one against Gillingham last week. I get that, not many teams are going to go to Gillingham and get any point, let alone 3. Similar to Notts County and Meadow Lane. But back-to-back 3-0 defeats on the road. We know that they've not really had the best of time of scoring goals, I think, either in the league at the minute. I can't remember how many it was at the top of my head. They've scored 3 goals all season. I mean, they've scored the same amount of goals as Morecambe. It's still early on, but it's all right if you can get results. But back-to-back 3-0 defeats, maybe a couple of warning signs there. Do you think?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like it's all well and good, keeping scores down and defending well, but and maybe not being too brilliant up front. But then when you start letting the goals in at the other end and you still haven't got much up front, you're in trouble. The problem I've got really was with that second goal, because it was effectively a carbon copy of the first one.
Yeah.
You have to learn from your mistakes, especially if you want to be competing towards the top end of the table. They really had to, liven up, be sharp, know what's going to happen. They've already done it once. You know what's coming. Stop it.
Yeah.
And then with the third one, I mean, just caught napping again. Lack of sharpness. You can't get caught in that sort of position. And like I said, I mean, the defense I think will obviously come good again, because they've had decent results with their defense, but that attack is going to be a constant problem, probably at least until January, unless they can find some way of of navigating it. I can't see a way that's going to improve in the near future, at least.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree. I mean, we know that they've got some obviously decent players as it is. I mean, I think we all knew that them losing Rob Apter was always going to be a huge miss. I do look at their front players. Luke Norris is they're just very all right. Luke Norris, Christian Dennis, Josh Davison. Yeah, they're all right League Two strikers. I can't see. They're not. I'm not sure. I might be talking out my arse. I probably am, and I most likely will. But they don't really scream like massive goal threats, if you know what I mean. It sounds harsh because they are decent in terms of, they've got different attributes and they have scored goals at this level before. But I'm just worried about, maybe the lack of perhaps creativity at times. I think in the midfield, I just think it's just very solid. I could be wrong. Please tell me, Tranmere fans, if I'm wrong. I just don't see a lot in there that can maybe then create, let alone score. I don't know. It's weird because they have got results. They have got results. I mean, they picked up 8 points, so they've not had a terrible start. But it's obviously their lack of goals is the main issue. I do agree that their defence will be better. I think they will get better in recent weeks. Taking nothing away from Colchester and Gillingham, of course, 2 good sides in this league. Gillingham especially. But yeah, as I've mentioned, I think if you're Tranmere, I think you're disappointed in the manner of the goals. They've just not learned from their mistakes in that, and I think that's probably the most frustrating thing. Just caught napping for the third one, the second one, just caught in possession. I think they're just way too easy for Colchester just to sort of split them open. Food for thought, I think, for Nigel Atkins there. But I mean, look, it's certainly no means the worst start in the world. But I just look at it, with their goal threat, and I'm not sure, 3 goals. I mean, still quite early on, of course, but it is something that has to improve. They have scored the same amount of goals as Morecambe. I mean, only Salford have scored one more goal than them. So it's. But you see the others, at least, quite a lot of them scored 8, 9. I don't know. It's just something just to think about. But taking off away from Colchester, it's a good win for them. Yes, it keeps 5 unbeaten now, I think I've said. 4 unbeaten. Sorry, because they drew the last 3, 2-1 alls and a 3-3 against Morecambe last week. But it was important for them just to get that league win. In which certainly something they have done. Right, we'll head off to a quick ad break, but when we get back, we'll talk about Crewe's recent rise in recent weeks. We'll also touch on the likes of obviously Walsall. I think they're an interesting one to touch on with how they start the season, and of course we'll touch on my beloved Mariners, in which I'll be honest, there's not really much to really dissect from the game yesterday. If I'm going to be quite frank, we'll see you in a moment. Don't go anywhere. And we're back. Welcome back to everyone that's still here. I hope you are enjoying so far. Right, we'll head on to Crewe because we were critical of Crewe at the start of the season. We know that they had a really poor start. I think it's probably safe to say losing at Barrow on the opening day was, and then they got hammered by Chesterfield, and which one that's it's one that I don't really want to remember. And then they drew with Swindon that 0-0, in which I sort of was like, this has not been ideal for Crewe at the minute. I mean, that was the worst game of football I think mankind has ever seen. But since then, what was it? 4 league wins in a row. Beat Harrogate 3-0 yesterday, quite convincingly. They took the goals really well. Kane Hemmings in particular had a really good performance, getting a brace. The other from Jack Lancaster. I don't know where this has come from, because we were so critical from Crewe at the start of the season. And I think even the second half of last season, they sort of faded out a little bit. I think it just sort of ran out of steam, sort of limped their way into the past and got to the final. I mean, we know that Lee Bell's a good manager, but even I was somewhat questioning his position maybe after Chesterfield, but even more so after Swindon. But 4 wins in a row. I mean, I think a lot of credit has to go to Lee Bell and to Crewe.
Oh yeah, no, it really does. I think it's reaching the point where I kind of owe Crewe fans an apology. Like even the other week, I was being particularly critical of them, but actually, they're performing really well when they're getting the results. Watching those goals back, they're particularly fluid in attack, and it's just really nice to watch. All credit to them. Fair enough. You've got yourself at the right end.
Yeah, I mean, as we've mentioned, Lee Bell is a good manager, but we were sort of all questioning, the last few months. But we know he's got him in it. He's got it in him. I mean, Crewe did lose some decent players this year in the summer. They still have some decent players on the books that they still have and have brought in. I thought they took the goals really well. Some really good finishes. I really liked their first one. It was from their throw-in, and they took it really quick. And it was just a couple of neat passes. And I believe it was Lancaster's ball to find Hemmings. It was an absolute thumping finish. Save for the second one actually from Lancaster as his own. I just thought they took the goals really well. Some good finishes at Crewe there, and I thought looking at it looked like they were well deserving of their victory. As for Harrogate, I mean, they picked up a really good win against Doncaster the other week. They were. I thought they were worthy of the victory, but I do look at them. They've lost 3 of the last 4. They've not scored a goal in those 3 games in which they have lost. I mean, they have picked up a couple of all right results. I mean, they beat Colchester away. I mean, they drew with Harrogate. They drew with Accrington. Sorry, that 3-3. Lost to Bromley on the opening day. 3 defeats from the last 4 is not a good pattern to be in, isn't it?
Oh yeah, no, it's not. And I mean, you look at the nature of the goals. As much as we do give credit to Crewe for scoring them, and nice football with the rest of it. From a Harrogate perspective, actually, it's really not all that good. They weren't really sharp at all. They weren't reacting to second balls. There were opportunities where they could have prevented those goals, and they weren't even close to preventing anything from happening there. They were always in trouble. And again, it's the same thing I was saying about Swindon, really. You have to find some kind of consistency somewhere to keep things running along smoothly. Otherwise, you do get stuck in this little rut. As you say, 3 losses in 4 or whatever it is. It's not what you want.
No, of course not. It doesn't set you up well either. I don't know. Harrogate's an interesting one because we know that they can play, and they can pick up results. I just feel at the minute in particular, I don't think much is really clicking. It feels weird to say, but that's the sort of impression I got from that. I think, as you mentioned, as much as the goals that Crewe scored, I thought were well taken of their own. I look at their first one in particular. I mean, I mentioned about the quick throwing and how they moved it. Harrogate had a chance to clear that away, and I think one of the players completely missed it. In all fairness, I don't know. I mean, their away form has not been great. It's not been that great to say that. I mean, they picked up that 1 win. I mean, their home form's probably even worse. I mean, I mean, they've only won one game is at home, and that was against Doncaster in the league. So it's just it's weird to really describe Harrogate because I'm not sure. I mean, we know that they're a staple League Two club now, that have been for quite a while. It's probably not been the start of the season that they'd hoped for, but if we're going to be honest, are they a side that are probably going to be right up there? Probably not. Are they a side that will probably be fighting relegation? Some might think that. I personally think that they might be okay. I still back that to be the case. I think a sort of mid-table, sort of their level. If I'm going to be completely honest, I had a pretty good year last year actually. It was very much in contention of a playoff spot at one point, but something's just not right at the moment. I don't think. I just don't think something's not right. I mean, looking at their next couple of games coming up, they've got Bradford next. They then obviously play you guys MK, and then they've got Swindon after that. So, a couple of interesting games to come. They've been pretty solid against Bradford in the past. I mean, they're playing a bit of a hit mainly miss MK Dons at the moment. And then you got Swindon, who are just completely missing all areas. I think it's probably safe to say. So there's opportunities for points there in which you can see Harrogate probably getting on a good day if they're at it. But it's just whether they're at it. That's what I'm probably a bit iffy about at the minute. But yeah, I mean, that's really all I've got to say on Harrogate. But for Crewe, absolutely flying at the minute, 4 wins in a row. I think a lot of credit does have to go to Lee Bell. As we've mentioned, we were talking about, is his job at risk a couple of weeks ago. But yeah, he's done really. He and his players have done really well to sort of turn that tide a little bit and to make him into a bit of a stronger team than what they were at the start of the season. Might have just been there, just one that needed to take a bit of time. But I think the manner of what they were at the back end of last season in particular, I think there was certainly some cause for concern. That's all I have to say on that one. Chesterfield, I think, have had a mixed start. I think is probably fair to say. They've been by no means the worst team, but definitely not the best. Few wins here and there. Few decent results. They drew 1-1 at home to Cheltenham yesterday. Another goal for Morecambe at home. It's come from a. I mean, if you saw the goal, it was an absolute comical. I think it's probably safe to say from the Cheltenham defender. I think he slipped just trying to clear it, and they got punished for it. And on the left hand side, he got squared to Morecambe. But I think what's even more comical was the Chesterfield keeping for Arkell Jude Boyd's goal. Is that his name? Yeah, Arkell Jude Boyd for his goal. I mean, the goalkeeper, I believe it's Ryan Boots. Yeah, it's just come running out. It's completely missed it. Jude Boyd is first to react to it, and it's an open net in which he slotted it in. I mean, Chesterfield had their chances. I think had the better of the chances. I mean, I remember one from Dobra missed a glorious chance at 1-1 in particular. What have you made on the Spirax so far? I think they're another side that a lot was expected. Probably not been the fast start of maybe some thought, but it's still early on, and by no means made the worst start in the world, have they?
Well, yeah, I mean they are grinding out points where they can. I don't think they've reached a point where they can properly put teams away, which is the point they need to reach if they're planning on being up there. But there are signs that they could be up there towards the end of the season. There's a nice little platform to build on, but eventually you do need to get to the point where you are beating the Cheltenhams of the world, and then they're not there yet. They're not there yet.
No, I think I think it's certainly the case that there's certainly more to come. That's for sure. I mean, I said that with Colchester, but I certainly see that the case with Chesterfield. I do feel that they've had a couple of their key men injured, in which they're getting back. I noticed that Paddy Madden was on the bench yesterday, same as Ryan Coolclough, who I know is a terrific player and will be a big player for them. I mean, same with Paddy Madden. Although you do see the players that they have got at the minute, with Dobra, Mark Hande's got a couple of goals now. I've gone on saying that how much I like Berry, one of their. I believe he was a new signing, James Berry. I've been particularly impressed with him so far. Oh no, he was at the club last season. I beg your pardon. But he's had a very good start to the season. They've just got quality all over the pitch. I believe there was a debut in there for. Oh no, John Fleck was on the bench yesterday. Should probably do a little bit more. You can tell just wing it at times, but it's a squad that's stacked, and there's certainly another gear for them to go to. Yeah, I'm not concerned about them just yet. I think for Cheltenham, I think it's probably a good point on the road if truth be told.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. I think going into that sort of game, they'd have taken a point. So I mean, it's a point against a side that could well be up there at the end of the season, and of course, it keeps Cheltenham's season running along quite nicely. Again, not particularly consistent, but enough to keep them anywhere, to keep them away from all of the trouble of the Accringtons and the Morecambes. They're well away from that, and they're just plodding along, doing a solid little job there.
Yeah, that's just what I see Cheltenham. I think they're consistently inconsistent at the minute. They've had some really good results, and then they've just gone on some really poor results. I mean, they lost 3 in a row at one point this season. I mean, you take their last 3 games. They obviously drew with Chesterfield yesterday, lost at Salford last week, and then they beat Harrogate the week before. Just very hit and miss at the minute. Just very, very inconsistent. I think is probably one to say on Cheltenham. They've got Fleetwood next, and then they've got Accrington. I think you probably look at it, especially Accrington, certainly winnable games, but there's got to be that fine line in which they've really got to work on in terms of consistency. But yeah, like I said, they're just plodding away, aren't they? I just feel like they're just sort of there at the minute. They get a few results and they have some pretty poor ones. They score goals, but they concede loads. That's just sort of what I get with Cheltenham at the minute. I didn't think there will be anything spectacular. I still don't think there will be this season. They'll be absolutely fine. That's for sure. But that's what I feel. That's what I get with Cheltenham. I think he'll probably take. I do like Mike Flynn. I do hope it does work out for him there. Just for his sake as well as Cheltenham's. For a little bit of stability, in which something that he's not had for quite a while, especially with his last 2 jobs. But yeah, that just Cheltenham is just there. But as I said, I do think Chesterfield have another gear to hit yet, and I think once they do that, they are going to be a force with some of the players that they have got, some real talent in their squad. I've been particularly impressed this season. And they've sort of taken me by surprise, actually, with Walsall. A win for them yesterday at Salford. Salford, they're another side that's been a bit hit and miss, a bit inconsistent themselves. It was a 2-0 win for the Saddlers. I'll tell you a player I've been really liking the look of this season, just in League 2 in general. That's Nathan Lowe, the lonely striker from, I believe, Stoke. He looks like the complete package up front. He sort of does remind me. He's a little bit different, maybe arguably a little bit to what Freddie Draper was. But I think already he just looks like he's got a little bit of the perfect package as a striker. Still obviously young. He's still another. He's got a couple of good years ahead of him. But he certainly made an impact at Walsall from what I've noticed. Charlie Lakin got the other one. A good away win from Walsall, and are they side that have probably taken you by surprise a little bit so far?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think at the beginning of the season we were saying, they're going to be toothless up front. They'll defend well, but they won't really do all that much going forward. But actually, there's goals in that side, and fair enough. I mean that first goal in particular, lovely ball across, and a brilliant finish as well into the top bin. So. Really, really good. And, they had plenty of chances in that game and they absolutely deserved it, to be fair.
There has been a large period where I have questioned maybe Walsall's goal scoring prowess, especially at the start of the campaign. But fair play, they've proved me wrong. They're scoring goals and winning matches up to 3rd in the table now, 15 points, just a point behind Barrow and Gillingham, to be fair. They've had a really good start to the season. It's one that I didn't see come. I think the potential was definitely there at Walsall, but it's just sort of unleashing that. I think it just felt like there was something holding them back, and it's really difficult to sort of pinpoint what. I think a lot of credit does have to go to Matt Sadler and his team. They look like a real force a minute. Whether they can keep it up is another question, but I think they're probably just enjoying it as they come at the moment. As for Salford. I mean, I just feel like they're a bit like Cheltenham, to be honest. Just a bit inconsistent.
Yeah, no, I'd say that's entirely fair. And I would say I'm pretty critical of them for the goals they've conceded, to be fair, in this game. I mean, for both, there wasn't exactly anyone throwing themselves in the way to stop these shots. There was a crowded box there, but no one, actually getting behind it. So, there's still definitely work to be done. Maybe a bit more commitment from the players. And, they could do more this season. I think they absolutely could do more with what they've got, but they're going to need to improve on performances like this, because you have to be beating, a side that's probably at a similar level.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned about performances. I mean, sort of similar to Tranmere. I thought I might as well mention them as well. It's just sort of goals as well. Just the 4 goals, albeit they played a game less compared to the other teams. But I mean, 4 goals. I think it's certainly a little bit of a goal scoring problem there. I mean, they got 2 of them against Cheltenham the other week. I mean, they obviously got that one against MK in which they won 1-0, and then they drew with Chesterfield. So, yeah, I mean, they played a couple of games less than a couple of others, but I think goal scoring does allude to be a little bit of a problem at the minute. But they've got some good players, and they've certainly got some good players that can score goals. It's just trying to get that rhythm going, and yeah, again, not Walsall, Salford are one which we're just going to have to really see after a few more games and see how they do. Again, enough. I think the potential's there, but I just feel like it's just something in their way, just a little bit. That's just sort of just dragging them back a little bit. We've not mentioned Barrow yet. That's quite a surprise, actually. I'm so sorry, Barrow. I'll give you the credit you deserve. You're top of the league. A 2-0 win against Newport yesterday. They're unbeaten in God knows how many. 5? They've 1, 2. Yeah, they're unbeaten in 5. They're 1-4. We got shown a graphic yesterday from Ryan, which he sent. Looking at our predictions at the start of the season, we predicted Barrow to be quite down there. I think we sort of did feel for Barrow a little bit. Already early on, I do think we offer a little bit of an apology. Stephen Clements in particular, I wasn't really familiar with your game. Good win for Barrow. Probably should have been a few more. I thought they dominated the game, to be honest. Well worthy winners against Newport.
Yep, you've taken the words straight out of my mouth. That is the first thing I have written in my notes. Dominated the game. They fully deserved that win. They were all over Newport. I mean, they were relentless, and that's what confidence does, isn't it? You're building on previous results. You're at home. There was never a chance they were losing that game. Once that kicked off, they knew they were winning. And, the more they play like that, the better, really. How long they maintain it, we obviously we don't know, but they've clearly got the ability to match the other teams in this league.
Yeah, of course. I just wasn't sure how far Barrow would maybe get under Stephen. I think it was just more the fact that Stephen Clements was, I say, a little bit of an unknown. He had that spell at Gillingham last year. We know the pressure's on them with the money they've spent. Maybe him getting us out was probably the blessing in disguise he needed, because he's gone to Barrow and he's really stamped his authority on things. And they've had a terrific start to the season. They go to Chelsea in the week as well, which is big for them. It's a really big day for their football club. And yeah, they're just loving life at the minute. Took the goals. I mean, another goal from a corner. That's three corner goals in 2 matches. I mean, they got 2 of them last week against us. Yeah, but I mean, Barrow and corner seem to be the love affair at the minute. We didn't think we all needed, but here we are. I mean, he sort of just lost. I think it was Anthony Glenn that sort of lost the man for the first goal as well. That brings to Newport. I think it's obviously had a good start to the season. I think they won 3 in a row at one point. Injuries, suspensions have sort of picked up. They've lost their last 3 with an aggregate score of 10-1. I think there's a little bit more. I think there's a little bit of cause for concern there, isn't there?
Yeah, I mean, you don't really want to sugarcoat it. They've been awful.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, they were clearly off the pace in this game, and they never really looked like they were in it. And to be honest, as you were saying, it could have been a lot worse. It really could have been a lot worse. And that is, of course, a cause of concern, because at some point you need a reaction. Where that reaction's coming from, I don't know. But there needs to be some kind of performance, even if the result isn't necessarily great. Just some kind of performance to show, like, we're here, we're going to fight in this league. We're not just going to roll over and drop straight down the leagues. Then show some fight. Come on.
Yeah. Like I understand it. They've had a lot of injuries at the minute, a fair few suspensions. The game that completely lost their heads out of Port Vale, but I think it was always good. I think it was always going to be tough last week. I don't think they had a recognised centre half at Swindon. I mean, Kieran can answer that, but I think they're playing Bryn Morris in defence. I mean, that's certainly a recipe for disaster straight away. But no, I mean, they were well beaten at Barrow, and it is one in which I think they do have to turn it around pretty quickly. Because it's not like they've been losing by the odd goal either. They've been getting hammered. They've been hammered in all three of those games. I think, if Barrow were on it, I think they could have scored about 3 or 4 at the very least. It won for a couple of their saves from their goalkeeper. It's quite weird because obviously we knew that Newport had the good start that they had. I'm still very suspect on Newport. I mean, they play Crewe next, probably not the side you want to play. A team that's right bang in form at the moment. So we'll see how they get on there. But yeah, I think last 3 games in particular, I can understand, the circumstances have gone against them, but I certainly think there's quite a bit of concern to be had there. That's what I would certainly think if I'm a Newport fan. I still have quite a few question marks on Jardim, if I'm going to be honest. But he deserves a bit longer and see what we can do, see if he can sort of turn this form around. So yeah, I mean, fair play to Barrow, did fully deserve that. Should probably get a touch on our game against Bromley. I'm not going to go into this massively because, to be quite frank, it was a fucking awful game. If I'm gonna be honest, I think we tried to play football a little bit more than what we did. I think we had the better of the chances for a large period of that. I mean, first half wasn't really much in it, and we had a glorious chance right early on in which probably Svan Thorson probably should have put away, for capitalising on their mistake. Yeah, they didn't really offer anything, particularly first half. Second half, we got that penalty. Greeny got fouled in the box. It is a penalty. It's stonewall. I don't think the Barrow defender can have any complaints. And then Rosie put it away. Probably not the best penalty in the world. Sort of the keeper tried putting him off a little bit, from left to right. It was really interesting because he sort of just waited until he sort of kicked it. It's really interesting, sort of how he waited, but it's gone in. There's not many complaints there, and I think there's quite a few aspects from yesterday. I think in terms of us for the fact that we can defend. I think certainly defensively it was probably our better performance of the season. There were times yesterday in which Bromley did cut us open. Cheek missed a sitter about 5 minutes after we scored. I don't know who's got that on target, and then I had a heart attack near enough right at the end in the 95th minute where they hit the bar, goal, a little bit of a scramble, somehow didn't go in. Head was in hands moment there. But we managed to hold out for a win. And I think we really needed it because I was disappointed last week in the manner that we lost to Barrow. The first half being nowhere near good enough. I'll be completely honest. Second half was better. Probably deserved another point on the second half shown, but we were not at it last week. I thought the performance was okay. I think we've played better. We've definitely played better and lost. That's for sure. But I think yesterday was just one of those in which, we got the win. And I think that's just all that really mattered. There was a couple of things in there in particular that sort of concerned me. Obviously, a couple of injuries in that game. Charles Burnham going off. I've been talking last few weeks how much I do like him and how much I think he started the season strong. But that's the risk with Chaz. There's always an injury in him. And I hate saying it, but it's true. You can't rely on him to play a full season. It's just near enough impossible. And I hate saying it, but it's just the fact. I know Tyrell Warren went off with a little bit of knock at the end, so hopefully there's nothing serious on that. Greeny red carded, that's another point as well. We'll get into another point in particular where that, but I don't think you can have really many complaints with the second yellow. But the one thing I think probably concerned me, I've noticed it for the last few weeks, but I've sort of just kept quiet on it a little bit in the hope that it would improve. I think it's just our overall fitness levels. I mean, last few games in particular, I think the game yesterday I think was really telling. On 70 minutes, we looked spent. We looked absolutely knackered, and we have done pretty much throughout the season. Green was absolutely blowing, and I do think that's part of the reason why. I mean, not by deliberate, of course not. But he just looked like he was just timing out. But the difficult thing is, it's not like we've got the personnel on the bench to change it. We've had a bench, full of defenders, a couple of fullbacks on there. Midfield, we've got a couple of midfield injuries. Thompson, Davis, we all know that. A couple of forward options, but especially midfield, and that's probably the main concern of it. We haven't really got anyone to really change it, and it's difficult heading into Carlisle next week because we could have quite a few players missing. Obviously, Greeny suspended, Greeny Esther. That's what David Artell said on the interview pod the other day. But we've certainly a dilemma that I won't be surprised if we maybe get to a back three. It's whether maybe Doug Thorne can play 90. I don't think he can, if I'm going to be honest. I know he got 5 minutes yesterday just to try to sell this result, but he's not played a lot of football. I think it's a big ask for him to play 90 minutes. But yeah, I mean, we got the win, far from convincing by any means. And I'm glad, to be honest, because I was talking to the chat yesterday. I despise Bromley. You know what Bromley are going to be. They're a bunch of nasty bastards. Big men. They know every dirty trick in the book. The threat from set pieces, although I thought looked quite poor from it yesterday. It's neither that or I think we defended them pretty well. My opinions on Andy Woodman, I think, remain silent. I'm just glad to get one over him, if I'm going to be quite honest, as much as Ryan probably says that, he loves the bloke. I've got different opinions from him. This is going back to our National League days. And I'm not sure I'll choose this, but I'll say that if, I believe it was Imre, I think they're number 25, I want to say. There was an incident in the lower in which he apparently spat at our fans. And if that's the case, what a fucking dirty bastard he is. I've got no respect for Bromley. I'm just gonna put it out there. Horrible little club. I don't care if I get shit for it. I'm just glad. It does feel like sort of the big I am, but I'm just sort of glad that we've got one over him yesterday. I really don't like him. Yeah. Do you agree with any of that? It's not really much to take from that game, if I'm going to be truth.
I mean, I'm not going to say too much on Bromley purely because we've got them next.
Yeah,
we've got to go there next week, so let me just avoid that. Thank you very much. But no, they're a very, very physical side, to be fair. And they were setting up not to get beat. They're relatively close to that happening. So it's not awful from them. And I think if they do something similar at home against us next week, they'll probably win. To be honest, because we don't like physicality. That's not our game.
Yeah. Well, next week then, Jesus Christ.
But yeah, no. From a Grimsby perspective, it's solid. It's not the prettiest game, obviously, but you've grinded out the result. You've got a clean sheet. You got your 3 points. Sometimes that's just all you need, And sure, the penalty wasn't really great, and I think if the keeper had actually committed to diving, he probably would have saved it. But he didn't, and there you go, 3 points. It's just another one to keep you going. It'll do.
Yeah, it's just very much it'll do. 3 points, yeah, just that'll do. Clean sheet, which is even more pleasing. Our first one of the season. Just take it and move on. It's not a game I'll be remembering. I'll probably forget about it next week. It was not a great spectacle of a game. It was a proper League Two game. We knew that what Bromley were going to do. At times, I thought we dealt with it pretty well, and I do think we probably just edged it slightly. Bromley almost nicked something right at the end, in which I honestly feel might have been a little bit unjust. I know I had a couple of chances, as I mentioned, but I thought we were slightly a better team. I thought we just about deserved to come away with that, although it could have maybe made a case that a draw might have been a fair result, but I think we could have scored a bit earlier. I look at that Van Thorsten chance in particular, like the first minute or two. I think we could have scored quite earlier, but yeah, scored from a penalty. It's a win. Move on, and that's what I will move, and that's what I will do now. Just a really quick one on Bradford, Wimbledon. Not really much to say. I think if you're AFC Wimbledon, I think you're disappointed with a draw. Actually, it says I had 0 shots on target. I think they hit the woodwork about 3 times. They had a disallowed goal. I think you'd be frustrated if you're there.
Yeah, I mean, my notes from this game are pretty much you've got two hoofball sides that have wasted all of their chances and should have scored. And that's kind of the case for both teams. That's been my summary of both sides. Yeah, I mean, both sides really should have done more of it. You could maybe say that AFC would arguably be slightly happier because it's away from home, but to me, neither side showed what they were capable of, really.
Yeah, I mean, I've just found Bradford at the minute, especially at home, to be quite uninspiring. I'm not sure if that's something you agree. I mean, they drew with Walsall. They drew with Salford. Sorry, they beat Bromley at home. I mean, they're saying that. Yeah, they've had some good results at home. They beat Carlisle. Maybe a couple of. It's been a good start. Maybe that's a bit unfair, but I do feel like there's a little bit there that you can maybe make a case for it. Maybe I'm being a little bit unfair. I didn't think they did much yesterday. If I'm going to be that's true, I don't think many teams did much. I think Wimbledon had the better chance. I mean, they had that chance in which I think it both left and right post. I think they hit the bar, and then they had a goal disallowed. I think he did everything, but he's just really unlucky. I think you could put that down to. But yeah, I don't know. It's just very uninspiring. I think that game. I think it's probably one that I don't think either team will particularly remember. I'm just going to move on, to be quite frank, because it's a draw. Not the worst probably draw in the world. Not the worst draw they'll ever get, but it just seemed a very uninspiring game, if I'm going to be honest. I know there's obviously Fleetwood Morecambe on Monday night. We'll just touch it quickly because we have it's sort of near there. I mean, Morecambe obviously picked up their first point last week, but they really need that win. They're coming up against Fleetwood, who have had a solid start. I think it's probably fair to say they've had a solid start to the season. It's going to be a difficult one, isn't it? I think away from home.
Oh yeah, no, it is. A random Monday night to go away when you're not particularly picking up any points or anything. As it is, I'd be surprised if Morecambe got anything from it. To be honest, I did predict a Fleetwood 1-0, back to the classic way of Morecambe losing by 1 goal. But I mean, maybe we'll be surprised, but I think this is going to be a pretty boring routine game where Fleetwood just kind of grind out a win.
Yeah, I can't see it being the most glamorous game in the world, if I'm going to be honest. I've stated for quite a few weeks, I think Morecambe have been unlucky with some of their results. I mean, they obviously picked up their first goal and first points, first goals and first point last week against Colchester. Excuse me. They just need to get that win going. I think if they get that win at this stage by hook or by crook, that it's just one thing that just desperately. I think they should probably ought to get something from it because they've got Notts County next, which is not going to be an easy game. With Notts County, Summit to they want a response after losing to Gillingham. Then they've got Bradford after that. So there's a couple of tough games there. But I mean, you look at the start of October. I know they've got Accrington. That could be a huge game early on in the season, but I can't. It doesn't get the blood pumping. If I'm going to be honest with both Fleetwood and Morecambe fans, that it's just what it is. I'll probably watch it, but we'll just see what happens. I'm intrigued more with Fleetwood, if anything. They have a good squad there, and I think they sort of proved me wrong already. Albeit they've played 5 games, 2 games less than what most teams have played. And I think they've had some decent results. It is, I mean, they took Stoke to penalties in the week. They scored quite late. I mean, it was one of the worst penalty shootouts I've ever seen. I think they lost 2-1 on it. It was a tragic shootout compared to what Preston and Fulham, I believe, I think it was like 16-15. But no, I mean, with them taking a championship side, although one that's probably a little bit of a mess at the minute, with them sacking Steven Schumacher and a couple of other things pointing at the manager. It's a good result against any championship side, so I think they can certainly take a lot of confidence in that. And won the last league game against Carlisle. I think if you're a Fleetwood fan, I think you're quietly optimistic. But Morecambe won't be no easy game. That's for sure. They've got something to prove themselves, and the quicker they get that win for them, the better. But like I say, it's not one in which I think will be loads of goals. I can't see it being right at the top of entertainment. If I'm going to be true, I'd like that. I'd like to be wrong there, because I will probably watch it. But I just can't see it if I'm going to be completely honest with you. And I believe that's it. I think we've come to the end there. Decent chat from also from what we've seen. Not, as I said before, not the most dramatic weekend. I think it's probably fair to say. Some sides grinding out a few wins there, and some sides were much poorer than others. And a couple of bottles in there. I'm looking at you, Accrington Stanley. I feel like it sounds like I've got a grudge in them. I really don't. I'm just going off from what I've seen it. But that pretty much brings the end to this week. A little bit later, we tried doing this earlier, but we didn't have a producer. Obviously, I've been given the tools for that. Probably the worst thing anyone can do is giving me the tools to anything, because you know that in some way, in some instance, I'll probably fuck it up. So if you're listening to this, I've done a pretty good job. I'm just trying to beat myself up there a little bit. But no, that's the end of this week. If you did enjoy, make sure, if you're listening to on YouTube, make sure you go and subscribe. If you're listening to this on Spotify, Apple, make sure you go and download the pod. Make sure you give it a review as well. Something I've not entirely mentioned. It does help out massively, and we do appreciate your support. Let us know in the comments. Follow us on Twitter. Tell us on there what you thought of your team, or just in the to general. We're always open to your thoughts, of course. Make sure you go and listen to the David Artell podcast, in which me and Jake recorded in a week as well. As I said at the start, we had a really good time chatting to him there, and it's really fascinating. Even if you're not a Grimsby Town or even a Crewe fan, for that matter, I think it's really interesting. It really gives you a different dimension to what managing a football team is really like, and he has some really cool stories in there. I can't recommend it highly enough. So make sure you go and check that out. Luke, is there anything you want to add before we go?
Just thank you guys for the support on that interview. Actually, the support has been outstanding on that, and ultimately, if those sort of episodes do well, it opens the door to us to speak to more football people, potentially from your club. So if that's the sort of thing you want to see from us more, then please do give us your support on that. It really is appreciated.
Absolutely, and it's something that we'd love to do more of that. So any support of that is hugely appreciated, and of course we'll let you know once we do another one, hopefully in a not too distant future. But any support of that will certainly give us a good chance of maybe getting some more people on there. But yeah, that's pretty much for me. It's just generally just a big thank you. I think in particular, I've enjoyed doing this from obviously from the start. I do quite a. I'm trying to be myself. I'm honestly not that much of a tit. I'll be honest. But I generally have enjoyed doing a lot of stuff. I mean, I'm the one that sort of puts out all the predictions together on the graphics. It does take a bit of time, but I generally just enjoyed doing it. So just a thank you from me, and thank you for all the support. We'll be back next week, hopefully with a full cast once we've got Jake back, and once we've got Kieran back. I've missed that Newport tears. If I'm going to be honest this week, I know that you were no show last week for different reasons, but we did enjoy your tears nonetheless with that video. I do recommend you go and watch that actually if you haven't, or listen to it if you haven't seen it. We got a good laugh out with Luke that day, and a certain amount of AFC fans, AFC Wimbledon fans certainly got that. So make sure to go and check that out. Thank you guys for listening. Just a little shush. Keep that on the lowdown. So thank you guys for listening. We'll see you again next week. But until then, have a good rest of your day and take care.